Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great week. This week we start week 6, so we're winding down, but the week is pretty similar to previous weeks. This week we're going to have a debt fixer simulation. This simulation is similar to our other simulations. You do go to an outside website to complete this simulation, and then you will post an initial post and 2 replies in the discussion board and complete your quiz. So this is the question. This is what's in the classroom. It's talking about the COVID pandemic and the stimulus package. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the link and go play the simulation. You can play this simulation as many times as you'd like. So if you don't like what happens, play it again. You're going to add an image in your discussion board post. I'm going to give you an example of a couple, ideas that you can put for that simulation image. They don't have to be exactly the same. And then share your experience and your strategies and whether you were successful in reducing the debt. So there's a couple big things that I want you to look at in the discussion board post. The first one is debt to equity ratio. In your opinion, is a high national debt a problem for future economic growth? What is the ideal debt to equity ratio? So during the simulation, it's gonna, in the instructions and stuff, it's gonna tell you the ideal debt to equity ratio, and it's gonna talk about some of the problems. So it's gonna kind of go over some of that with you. The second big thing I want you to talk about is crowding out. What happens is government spending, it will increase our national debt. We increase this a lot of times during times of need, like times of war, when we need to increase military spending. We can also do this during a recession. We can order things that maybe we were going to do anyways, like think of fixing roads and bridges, things like that. They'll do that and increase government spending. That will shift out our aggregate demand, and that will be hiring people and things like that. And then that will allow those people to spend rather than being on unemployment. And so some of these increases in spending are put into effect. What happens with crowding out is it's considered a negative effect of government spending because it can crowd out private industry in some cases. So see if you can find some examples for that. And then in your responses, compare and contrast your experiences and opinions with those of your classmates. Share current news articles, things like that. Do not post the same posts to 2 different people. Yes, I do read your replies, and you must post 2 different things. So putting someone else's name on it or something like that is not going to be sufficient to get to that proficient level in the grading rubric. Don't forget, detail both GDP to debt and then crowding out. So the simulation will explain these answers as will the text. And I always give my responses to, in my responses, they're probably pretty heavy, dense, maybe takes a little bit to read. There's a point to that. I want you to leave this class with as much information as you can on the economy, because particularly macroeconomics you hear a lot about on the news. And so I want these concepts to kind of stick with you. And so I try to over provide for you in the hopes that, some of it will be interesting to you that I provide. So let's go on to the simulation. These are a couple different images that I get usually each term. Pick one that interests you. One is like more comprehensive, that has kind of the left side of the page, and the other is just the straight results. Do not feel like you need to have, the best answers and to do the best things for your results. The goal isn't to be successful, but it's to understand the concepts. So here's an initial post example. This student talks about their experiences playing the simulation, the debt to equity ratio, and then crowding out. All 3 sections are included. Things are cited and referenced. Please be sure when you're doing this, if you want to take a look at this and read what the student has said, you can just pause this video and see kind of what they come up with for this situation. Also, I want to give you kind of the key takeaways, which, you know, isn't the entire answer, but it gives you a really good place to start. That way, if you are confused, you aren't that confused. It takes you 80%. My goal is to take you 80% of the way through. So debt levels in reference to GDP that are less than 60% have a positive effect on growth. Debt levels up to 90 have no impact on growth, and debt levels above 90 have negative impacts on growth. Where we are in the US is above that 90%. So that's kind of the problem. Crowding out can create a situation where government spending causes a reduction in private spending. This happens in healthcare, charitable giving, and venture capital funding. Those are some of the big areas. You can see if you can come up with any others. There are many others out there. We can reduce crowding out by printing money, but also this has its own impacts as well. So I hope this gives you some great ideas for this week. Let me know if you have any questions.